The first question before we begin is, can you please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and anything you just want our audience to know about you?
So my name is Dr. Paul Vallée. I live in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm 55 years old. My background in profession is academia, so that's why I have the PhD. I'm currently mixing two professional assignments. I have a sort of a day job as a foreign language teacher with IFAGE, which is an institute for continuing and adult education here in Geneva, and more longer, for 12 years now, I've been an associate fellow with the Geneva Centre for Security Policy, which is a hybrid international organization based here in Geneva that does both research on international relations, also policy advice, and of course, executive education training.
You grew up between Washington and Basel, studied in Paris and Boston, and you served in the French army. It taught you various things about institution, and you earned your PhD at Cambridge. I have to say that this is a very unusual life path because there were very different career paths. So was there something that made you know that this is what you wanted to do? Was it planned, or did you just unfold one decision at a time?
Well, I think, as a child, it's not the same perspective as when you've later grown up. So I happen to be an expatriate-born child, so I had this early life experience of moving around with my parents from the United States to their home country, France, as well as to Switzerland, where my dad pursued his career until retirement, and so I lived in these different countries, and certainly that's been an early experience, and the opportunity to travel, that's also, I think, something I was lucky to have as a youth, did contribute to my interest in moving to different places, first for studying, and that's really quite a luxury to have the possibility to study in different places, but it's also a matter of curiosity because educational systems change from one country to another, and that I think I was very interested from an early age, and the choice of my studies in international relations, which led me, of course, to the GCSP at a later stage and to other professions and teaching. Well, that has stemmed, of course, from that experience. So that's part choice and part chance. And so I think, it's when it's sometimes not always a chance or a choice that people have to move about like that. But if the occasion presents itself, I think it's something that you can really learn from, first of all, and then, of course, use to pursue your career in a lot of different places. And I think it also makes you aware of the fact, and this is maybe something that my generation and the next ones are going to be a lot more acquainted with, is this moving about and this mobility in your profession or maybe in your place of living. And lives in the future are not going to be so linear as they may have been for earlier generations. And so if you're prepared to meet these conditions, then it can be a great personal enrichment for yourself, and to be able to take that on the positive side and to make the most of it.
This is not part of the questions, but while you were talking, just came to my mind. We have a lot of people in the youth community who, I won't say they are scared, but because of maybe what they have experienced in life, they're a bit scared about maybe taking the chance to apply to various opportunities. Now, from your experience traveling and taking, because you did mention that not everything was planned, some things happened by chance. What would you say made you overcome the fear of taking those opportunities as they presented themselves?
That's a really very interesting question, and I think it's important also to realize that these are questions that you're not going to ask yourselves just when you're young, but it also is going to be at a later age. And I think that's an important thing to do when you're coming out of your teens, in your late 20s or in your 20s, and you may be moving away from home and from family for the first time, and that takes some adjustment. Yes, it's a bit of a challenge, like leaping into the swimming pool when you're learning to swim. It really is something you have to brace yourself to make yourself do it. There are not that many ways to learn how to overcome it, but then, maybe you're going to indeed have a learning experience out of that will make you more comfortable at a later age. And then, when you're an adult and that you may have to consider professional changes, that's also not something very easy to come out of your comfort zone in many ways. And moving from one teaching establishment to another, in my experience, has been sometimes, a moment for hesitation, but then a moment of discovery, and then things worked out for the better as well. And I was at the age of 40 when I relocated from Paris to Geneva after a lengthy stay, and to go through a certain number of professional but also life-setting changes, and it was a bit of a difficult hesitation, but I think circumstances unfolded that made me think it was the right moment to try to change and to do it. So it's definitely not an unnatural fear, but something that you can eventually master.
You taught history and international relations for over 2 decades. Yet history is a subject many young people dismiss as irrelevant. I can talk from experience because we weren't really taught history in school. No, we weren't taught history in school. It was not even part of our curriculum at all, from secondary school all the way to college, unless you were studying the arts and the commerce. That was when it was mandated. But for many of us, it wasn't necessary for us to study history. Why does knowing history matter? And what does it give to a young person that nothing can give them?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a question that a lot of history teachers get asked. And I think that's precisely why it's a really valid question and an important one to ask, because it's up to us teachers also, of course, to make this subject relevant to young people, but also to adults as well. And first of all, it's something like what I strongly believe about lifelong education and learning is that there's really no age that you can want to learn or not to learn history, but it's a subject that you can really take up if you have the time and the interest at some point at any age, and that's why that's important. The most important thing I would stress about history, and that addresses the relevant thing, is that you will find out as you progress in life and you're finding your place in the world, whether you're a young person or a little bit older, you're going to realize that history surrounds you, and it's everywhere. It's of course about generations that were a little bit before you, or really much older. But you will see that in the situation where you live. You'll see that in landmarks in your community, places that you visit, and so on. And there may be always the question of why is it like this, or why is it there? And that's the important answer about history, is that it really does teach you where we come from and why the present world is in many ways as it is. And it helps you identify stories of challenges in the past that people had to overcome, and that can be eventually very inspiring. And I think the last thing that young people are going to learn about history as well is that throughout generations, generation after generation of young people have been the actors of history, and they've helped make that history for later generations. So I think this is always something very important to bear in mind, that there's It's an important, relevant knowledge for people who are growing up to be citizens, to be members of a community, of a society, to be entrepreneurs, to be business owners, to work with ideas or with things, to make things. And all of that is part of the great history. And it's something also, I mean, history comes from story, and that's something that also helps unite humanity, that's really unique to us humans, of whatever background we are.
You have appeared on CNN, Al Jazeera, France 24, and Bloomberg as a commentator on global affairs. What does it take to speak clearly and credibly in those spaces? And in a world where articulation matters more than ever, especially in the digital age, what do you think really goes into becoming a strong communicator?
Well, doing media appearances is part of those unplanned things that sort of happened because my first background was teaching. But that is, of course, very akin, I discovered, to doing a media appearance. So maybe, first of all, a background in teaching is helpful for that because you're just accustomed to speak in public. And you need to articulate, to explain, of course, illustrate, to be, of course, organized in your thought, and so on. And those are things that, teachers routinely prepare before class. Sometimes it's also something, it depends on, your educational system. Some systems lay a lot of emphasis on preparing students to public speaking. I attended the French system that actually did play a lot of emphasis on that. But it's things that you also learn later in higher education. And if you are really contemplating a teacher career, that is something that you will need to be able to do. And then when it comes to explaining things as a guest on the media, it will be the same thing. But as you mentioned, in the digital age, the attention span is very short. And I think it's especially the case when you're doing either radio or television appearances, you will always have limited time. And the show has to end at a certain time. You may have some of the questions that you can discuss prior with the presenter, or you'll only get the gist of it and such. So it's always very good to have done a little homework before that, because you will prepare what are the most immediate answers to the question. If you have to give examples, you're able, and you have a choice of several, you'll be able to choose, well, which one is the most important and illustrative to give. And that way you will be able to reduce your speaking time. You'll save more time for other questions. And yes, so being able to speak with also everyday language as well is also something that you learn through practice. I mean, you can actually rehearse it or do it in several different settings. It's something that you can learn as you go.
I think one of the reasons this question is very important to our audience is we have people in the youth community who probably during their time in higher institution did not necessarily have the opportunity to study public speaking as well. So for a lot of them, when they're coming out of school, it's the first time, probably during an interview or during conversation, is the first time where they have to, their communication skills is being tested. So for a lot of them, it's coming from a place of fear. How do I go into a space? If you give me a pen and paper, I can write my answers for you, because then I can either erase it or scratch it out and redo it. But when I'm speaking now, I don't have the opportunity to, let's say, retract my words, say, speak it again. How do I do that? Because there are a lot of things that goes into thinking about communication, speaking with people. And for a lot of them, because we're in the digital age, a lot of them have to speak on the phone with a lot of people. And I won't want to say you are judged by how you speak, but oftentimes you are really judged by how you speak, so how you present yourself. So for the young people who haven't had the chance to maybe learn the basics in school, what would be your advice to them?
Well, I think that's to look for opportunities in your actual surroundings where you can eventually practice that. And this is it depends in what sort of activities you're engaged in with your community, and we're not talking just about professional activities. I think leisure is a very important place where you can exercise the art of practicing a good speech and addressing others, because that's the first thing. If you're part of a sports team, whether you're actually a trainer or one of the players, but you need to prepare your team for a game. And this is the opportunity where you can speak to your other partners and give out your ideas, your proposals. Think, how is the best way to proceed? That's a very simple way to do it. If you're engaged in another community project, if you're organizing, even a family reception or a dinner with a lot of other people, with family and friends, those are also very basic settings that people will not necessarily think about as a place to practice for professional speaking, but this is the first place where you learn with people who are with whom you're more familiar. And of course it makes it easier as well, because you're surrounded by well-meaning partners who know you, your family and your friends, and so this is a sympathetic audience, and I think that's already a great way to test that as well. And it's a way where you also learn not just speaking, but organizing and leadership skills.
Africa is increasingly central to global conversation on security, demographics, climate, and economics. So from where you sit at the Geneva Centre for Security Policy, what is the one thing you think young Africans most need to understand about the world they are entering into?
Yes, well, it's a nice question to answer that, because the Geneva Centre for Security Policy actually has a number of activities that relate to Africa, to African issues, partnerships with African countries as well. I've had the opportunity in the past to take part in training courses that African diplomats and civil servants and NGO personnel attended in mid-career training here in Geneva. And so, I mean, it's always, an opportunity to also learn from them as well. So, of course, that's a first thing I think young Africans need to be aware of. If they're finding themselves sort of in an awkward place in the kind of world that we're in, first of all, to be confident in themselves. That's an important aspect, that they have a lot of things to teach us in return. And then, the important thing I think for young Africans to understand about the world, and this is something that we here are understanding in our own perspective, non-African as well, is that the fact that the world is a vastly complex place that is becoming much more complicated in many ways, even though we're in an age in which technology allows us to connect across continents, across time and space, and in so many ways that past humanity has not been able, for technical reasons, to do so before. So it's both a frightening age, but it's also an age of possibilities. And so this is an important lesson, I think, for young Africans who will be really prime actors of the next part of the 21st century, and maybe the next as well. God willing, we'll still be around as a species. But, it is important to exactly factor in this complexity, study it, try to understand it, even though it gets always more complicated, or there's always a side story or another parameter adding itself. But it's also stimulating exercise because it really gets your mind going, and this is where your creativity is really going to come out. So understanding the complexity will stimulate your creativity and your capacity to contribute to the world. And I think there's no reason that young Africans cannot master that challenge in this day and age.
Hesed is an organization that focuses on youth empowerment, mentorship, and mindset change. What about it made you know that this was something you wanted to join? What's the story of how you became part of the advisory group in Hesed?
Well, I have to say there was an immediate, I think, connection with the concept to Hesed World because of my background as an education professional, and the core activity of Hesed is something that spoke very powerfully to me. Of course, it all comes down to my meeting Kiki Lawal, and this is another of those unplanned chance encounters that happens in life. But I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity. And of course, the GCSP was its executive in residence program, was the opportunity for me to be colleagues with Kiki for over a year and a half. It is where she explained to myself and to several others at the GCSP what her original concept for Hesed was. And we are several of us to whom this notion that not only is youth empowerment, of course, an important aspect of getting the youth to contribute fruitfully in the development of their countries, but also this notion, I think, of connecting generations is also something that spoke powerfully, because you reach a certain age, you've had a first career and then a second and maybe a third career, and of course with what you've learned over the time, you realize that this is something you can share to young people, and so that they'll be less intimidated starting out, and so Hesed is really aimed at providing this kind of thing that I think is extremely important. And I want to stress again that there is no age where you cannot learn new things. That there is, and I think this is also something that has led me to my rather conscious choice to move rather from university settings to adult education and night school and continuing education, because these are the venues where you actually teach people or learn with people of different ages, people who are different stages as well. And I think it's really empowering, not just for the youth, but for us older folks to be put in this context and to be able to share and to help out. And so I think this is, one of the indispensable missions that Hesed is undertaking. And yes, that's what really made me want to be a part of it. And of course, I'm grateful to Kiki Lawal in particular for feeling that, my professional background, even if I, don't have much relevant life or professional experience connected to Africa. I've only been to Africa once, and that was fairly recently now. But she thought I had something to give to the advisory group, and I'm very happy and very grateful for that trust.
So for mentors now, because you have mentioned repeatedly that there is no age where you can't learn new things, we are actively trying to connect young people with people who have gone before. And another thing that comes to my mind is when you were also talking about history, you also emphasize that history is a place where we can learn from past generations as well. So for mentors who are probably getting to that stage in their career where they feel like they have done enough and they want to also pour out to the young generation, what will you tell them about the benefit of mentorship? Like the benefit of mentorship to mentors, people who want to start but have not yet done it.
Mhm. I'll certainly emphasize, I think, the benefit is first of all, I think, going to be personal. It may not be entirely impactful or relevant to your very own professional development, but over time, I think you will find that that happens as well. First of all, mentoring is no easy task as well. So it is something where you will also be on a learning journey, because you need to learn about your mentees, about their situation, their expectations, and precisely determine what it is, the special thing that you as a mentor are going to contribute to them. And whether it's going to be your professional, your express professional experience, or maybe some more mundane skills like organizing or public speaking or team leading, and so on. And this is an experience that sometimes we take for granted, but that everyone needs to be taught and given someone to practice with over time. This is also the great occasion to conduct a very interactive kind of learning journey with your mentees. And so you'll find that indeed, and I think this is an intuition that Kiki Lawal had when she thought about the philosophy of Hesed world, that the act of contributing to someone's development is something that is really to be treasured over time. I think you realize that at an older age as well, that you are participating in the big story because you are working with the actors of the next chapter, and that's of course something that you don't necessarily realize at an earlier stage in your career. So that's, I think, one of the important aspects of mentoring, is the fact that not only are you going to benefit to someone, but you will also be benefiting yourself.
Okay, so for the young people who are listening and who might be saying, what do I get out from this interview? If I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for someone who has done it before, and I need someone to help me, how do I approach it? Because the reason I'm asking this is we have some people in the community, and just as a young person in general, who might feel that my experience is too unique, that I feel someone else might not understand my unique context. For those young people now, having transitioned between different careers, what can you tell them about it, regardless of how unique they feel their experience might be? What can you tell them?
Yeah, I think the important takeaway for any young person is to never give up. Tenacity and resilience are things that are going to serve you your whole life as well as in your present. It's about your current challenges, and it's about tomorrow's challenges. And the reason I say, never give up is not only, never give up on hopes and dreams, even though experience may prove that, some of these hopes and dreams are not attainable in the current circumstance. But the important thing about not giving up is the fact that it's something that will keep you active and that will keep you going. And the other thing I want to stress that is tied to this tenacity is to always keep your curiosity for learning. Again, there's no moment in your life, whether it's youth or at an older age, that you're not going to be learning things. And this curiosity is going to stimulate you forward and will get you to meet new people, to try new experiences, to indeed, undertake new activities, maybe in a different place, maybe building in a family, and so on. And the fact that you keep this curiosity, this lifelong curiosity, is also not just something that will eventually give you some professional rewards, because it will present you with the opportunities, doing things that you thought you might have not have thought about doing before. But it is also, of course, something that you will integrate into yourself, that you will keep for yourself. And as you age, this is also something that in many ways, keeps life being fun. And that's also, of course, something that I see, in night school. I teach some groups with young people, and some people who are retired and who are grandfathers and grandmothers, and they're still interested in doing things with other people, in learning a new language, or about a new culture. And I think that's an attitude that's extremely important for you to have a healthy, longer lasting life. And that is, to keep this curiosity and this thirst for, every opportunity to do a new thing that is going to be, I think, really important as a young person. And you'll find out then when you're not so young, it's also still relevant.
Thank you very much. I think this will be the last question because it popped into my head while you were speaking. So far, from talking from personal experience and just interacting with more young people, a lot of times we feel that we need to do things at a certain time. There's this drive to rush, maybe to finish school at a certain age, get a job at another age, and maybe probably get married, have a house, buy a car, all these things at particular ages. Now, so far, just listening to you and everything, it feels like you have lived a very full life, and you didn't allow it to stop you when you were 40, moving all the way from Paris to Geneva and everything. So talking to a young person who feels that they need to finish things at a certain age, that if they do not finish it at this age, they have not lived their life, what would you have to tell them?
First of all, I'll say that we all go through these periods of inquiry and indeed, worry about, is there a certain age to achieve this and that? And often we have been conditioned in many ways to have these expectations. I've had them myself at a while. But I think, again, you will realize with life's experience that indeed, things will not necessarily go as planned, and that chance encounters are also going to matter a great deal. And this is when you have to be, I think, flexible enough to take a step back and to think, well, either this needs a little bit more work or more waiting, certainly a great deal of patience on your own part. Unfortunately, this is something I learned in my academic studies. As impressive as they may sound, a doctoral dissertation is really quite an odyssey. And it turned out, in my case, to be a lot more complicated than anything I had imagined when I set out, and it lasted, much longer than I would have liked. It's had, of course, also a bit of a professional impact, but then you have to take that in stride and to indeed, seize the chances that do come at a given moment. And then, realize that, yes, these notions that you have that, at a certain age you will have done this and that are perhaps, more, they're not necessarily wrong. It's not necessarily wrong to have these dreams at an earlier age, but perhaps, yes, they weren't entirely realistic. And the experience has come along to correct that feeling. And then, the path not taken, you will take another path, and there is a destination, whatever that path you follow. So that's, I think, an important perspective to acquire, but that I think is maybe something more of a wisdom that comes with growing up, coming of age, and at different stages in your life. Yes, the expectations are there, but the important thing in the end is to land in a place where you are comfortable and where you feel you're accomplishing something, that you're doing something that matters, and that I think is an important life lesson and professional lesson to learn along the way.